House of Representatives votes to affirm resolution on Grenlec settlement agreement. We'll have the details of this story and more in the National Report. Welcome back. With the details of the news for Friday, January 15, 2021, I am Sherry Noel. The House of Representatives voted Friday in favor of the motion seeking to affirm the settlement award paid to WRB Enterprise to repurchase majority shares in the Grenada Electricity Services Limited, Grenlec. Under the negotiated settlement, which was reached after the International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes ruled in favor of WRB, government has already paid US $60 million, with another US $3 million due in 2 years. Contributing to the debate on the motion, Prime Minister Dr. The Right Honorable Keith Mitchell provided historical insight into immense work done through the rural electrification program between 1985 and 1990, significantly increasing the availability of electricity in many communities across the country, which meant that when WRB purchased the company, it was well poised for further development.
By the time 1995, Mr. Speaker, over 96% of the country had electricity. Mr. Speaker, and that is what was so sad, Mr. Speaker, about this whole exercise when the government came in 1990. Instead of they took the position where the workers left it, where we left it, how they decided to sell that company was amazing to me, and literally gave it away.
Dr. Mitchell described it as the worst sale undertaken by any government of a national asset which guides the development of the country. He also questioned the decision by the then government to rush into the sale of a monopoly national security asset just before an election. Quoting from the Hansard, which is the official record of Parliament, Dr. Mitchell said his sentiments regarding the sale of Grenlec then and his sentiments today are the same. The conditions of the sale were not in the best interest of the country.
And this is reading exactly from the Hansard. Mr. Speaker, that's me. We must stop playing games with this country. The point of this matter is simply this. If you want to proceed to sell or to privatize, it is clear, Mr. Speaker, we are saying give the Grenadian people the first priority. This was a comment in 1994, quotes from the Hansard, which I asked the clerk to make available. I went on further. Put out the shares on the public, to the public, give them an opportunity to participate fully. And I said this joke that we only selling 50% is really an NDC deceit.
This view was shared by all parliamentary representatives of the ruling New National Party as they contributed to Friday's debate. They all lamented the unfortunate fact that the discussion about Grenlec has become an NDC versus NNP debate, rather than remain a subject of national conversation as it affects all Grenadians. There is also general optimism about the future of Grenlec and its ability to fulfill its role as a national asset, together with the liberalization of the energy sector to bring tremendous benefits to the people of Grenada, Carriacou and Petite Martinique. Moving along, the government of Grenada is solidifying the principles that will guide the divestment of its majority shares in the newly repurchased Grenada Electricity Services Limited, Grenlec. It is government's desire to see that as many locals as possible have an opportunity to invest in this national asset. In a meeting with representatives of the Grenada Trades Union Council, a number of broad principles for divestment were discussed, chief of which were providing opportunities for Grenadians at home and abroad to purchase shares in the company, gradually transitioning Grenlec from a diesel-powered system to renewable energy, and engaging in consultations with relevant stakeholders as part of the divestment process. Minister for Finance, Honorable Gregory Bowen, said the transition to renewable energy will significantly reduce the cost of electricity and spur economic growth, particularly in the manufacturing and hotel sectors, which will be of substantial benefit for all Grenadians. The government's repurchase of the utility company is expected to create tremendous opportunities for locals to be trained in renewable energy, a sector with great potential for business development and job creation. The government team consisting of Minister for Finance and Public Utilities Honorable Gregory Bowen, Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Business Honorable Oliver Joseph, and Permanent Secretary Ms. Patricia Clark facilitated what was mutually described as a very fruitful exchange with representatives from the Grenada Trades Union Council. The GTUC team, comprising 7 members and led by its president, Senator Andrew Lewis, recommended that shares should be sold only to Grenadians. On Friday, during the sitting of the House of Representatives, Minister Bowen reported on the meeting held with the Trades Union Council. He stressed that priority should be given to Grenadians to avoid a repeat of the current situation.
We reiterated the part that Grenadians first, Mr. Speaker. From all angles, Grenadian first. And again, I could see why now the Grenadian Trade Union Council is calling on us, on any administration, come to discuss, for fear that anybody will again fall into this dismal situation, Mr. Speaker.
Both government and the Grenada Trades Union Council highlighted the importance of regular exchanges going forward. This is a national report. More news after the break.
Protect yourself and our community from COVID-19. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. If soap and water are not available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer with at least 70% alcohol. Use a tissue when blowing your nose, sneezing, or coughing. Immediately discard the tissue properly and wash or sanitize your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Let's do our part to ensure that each and every Grenadian remains healthy. To stay up to date, visit the Government of Grenada's webpage or the Ministry of Health's Facebook page. For more information, contact the Ministry of Health's hotline by calling 53-VIRUS. This has been a public service announcement brought to you by the Ministry of Health.
Welcome back. Members of the lower house on Friday gave support to the motion to approve the extension of the Declaration of Emergency Powers COVID-19 Proclamation 2021 to July 14, 2021. The motion, as presented by the Leader of Government Business, Honorable Gregory Bowen, seeks to prevent the frequent renewal of the declaration by Governor General Her Excellency Dame Cecile La Grenade. The previous declaration, which was made in December, was revoked and a new one was announced on Monday, January 11th. Minister Bowen says the Constitution provides for the execution of a state of emergency up to 6 months.
The Governor General could proclaim a state of emergency, and it is only during the state of emergency that we could curtail the freedom of movement of persons under the Constitution. And when the Parliament is not sitting, then it is only for a limited period. And because we do not wish to come here every time or ever so often, and because the science and the Ministry of Health have indicated that we want an extensive period after the cluster, so that while we do have the emergency in place, we can bring it back to 6 o'clock, to 7 o'clock. If the Ministry of Health say, here, there is a big problem. So the Governor General does not even have to proclaim. The Parliament has said that you are in a state of emergency for this period, and as such we have time to fluctuate up, down. We might bring it to 12, they might take it out to 1, 2.
Health Minister Honorable Nicholas Steele reiterated that Grenada is not immune to the virus and its effects. He explained that the curfew and regulations are imposed to restrict movement and avoid the spread of COVID-19. Minister Steele assured that at no point will Grenadians be restricted for an entire 6-month period.
These measures, while this says all the way to July, it is my sincere hope and expectation that we would not have to go all that distance. But the law prescribes 6 months. And the law also clearly says can be revoked at any point in time. So it is the book we are following, so to speak, to the letter. The curfew is not put in this, because we do believe that we should and will exercise that flexibility based on, at any given time, the local epidemiological situation and the threat. So there's no need to write it in the hope that there's no need to keep it on.
The motion was also supported by Minister Kendra Matruin Stewart and Opposition Leader Tobias Clement.
I do not have at this time the formula nor a solution. But I believe, Mr. Speaker, that with the extension and the existence of the state of emergency, that as a government, as a cabinet, that we'll be able to create the legal mechanisms that will be able to, maybe in the first instance, to restrict persons to go back and forth.
I do believe, Mr. Speaker, that we as a people, or even as a government, I almost find in it that we should, is almost boiled down to individual responsibility. Individual responsibility. And sometimes I find that our people are just lax in their responsibility to themselves, to their family, to the nation's family as a whole. And I would continue to urge our Grenadian people that we were very fortunate on this side. I say God has been merciful unto us in that we are at this point in COVID-19.
The Fisheries Division of the Ministry of Sports, Culture and the Arts, Fisheries and Cooperatives is advising seafarers and the general public to exercise extreme caution in and around the waters of Grenada, Carriacou and Petite Martinique. In recent days, there has been an increase in sightings of sharks in the marine environment of neighboring eastern Caribbean islands. The public is encouraged to be vigilant when venturing out to sea. Fishermen and the general public are also advised to report all sightings of sharks to the Fisheries Division and the Coast Guard. Further, if a shark is sighted, persons should immediately leave the water. And finally, in the news, farmers in Grenada are being advised by the Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology to take heed of the weather prediction and outlook for January to March 2021. La Nina is likely to continue through the Northern Hemisphere winter 2020-21, with a 95% chance for January to March. Karima Lewis has more in this report.
The precipitation outlook is for normal to above normal rainfall, with 45% above normal, 35% normal, and 20% below normal rainfall, which will continue until March 2020. An increase in wet days is forecasted for Grenada. Usually, there are 15 to 30 wet days during this period. However, we can expect an increase of 19 to 41 days. This means that a slight increase in the number of wet spells is expected. The potential for flooding, landslide, and erosion is expected to continue at least until the end of March. The present outlook with normal to above normal rainfall and the potential for flooding, landslide, and erosion, which is expected to continue at least until the end of March, is both good and bad news for farmers. The increased rainfall means that those who do not have irrigation can continue planting a wide variety of crops. What they have to be aware of is the potential increase of pests and diseases that can also be present due to the increased rainfall. Crops such as tomatoes may not do well at this time. The increase in wet days that is forecasted for Grenada will also affect some crop varieties such as tomatoes and peppers. Farmers will have to pay attention to when they plant so that crop maturity does not extend too much into the dry season, which can affect yields. Crops such as corns, sweet potatoes, and yams have ideal growing conditions and is expected to do well. There is still a shortage of local tomatoes on the market, but farmers who have opted to cultivate tomatoes need to monitor the weather closely. Farmers making use of irrigation will also have to monitor the weather information, rainfall, and soil moisture so that they do not over-irrigate and cause waterlogging, which can lead to increased fungal, nematodes, viruses, and bacterial diseases, as well as an increase in aphids and white fleas. For the Ministry of Agriculture, I am Karima Lewis.
Thank you, Karima. And with that story, we come to the end of the National Report for Friday, January 15, 2021. A recap of the top story. House of Representatives votes to affirm resolution on Grenlec settlement agreement. On behalf of the entire news and production team, I am Sharian Noah, thanking you for viewing.